A world powered by the blockchain is being formed right in front of our eyes. Experts are calling it the Internet 3.0, the next digital revolution. It's leaving many investors and even institutions looking for a path to take an early position in this massive opportunity. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Dash, it's all speculation at this point. But what is certain is that the most profitable businesses for cryptocurrency and the blockchain is in the actual creation of these coins. This is why some of the top early adopters of Bitcoin, blockchain miners, fund managers, and even billionaires have come together to create a new vehicle to invest in the blockchain core itself. Get immediate access to this new company by going to crushthestreet.com/Bitcoin.
Hello everyone and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I got a Bitcoin pioneer, cryptocurrency, just visionary on the line with me today, Eric Voorhees. And we're going to have a great conversation today, talk about the future, maybe talk about the past a little bit, and just get an idea of what is going on in cryptocurrency with the man in himself. You know, trying to contain the free market is like trying to contain water in your hands. And it's very difficult to do, and eventually the water seeps out. And the projects that Eric has been involved with are extremely cutting edge, and I dare to say a consequence of capital control that have propelled cryptocurrencies. This is a man who's ahead of the curve. He's the creator and CEO of Shapeshift, and also leading a brand new project, Prism, which we'll get into on the call today. The world-renowned Eric Voorhees, thanks for coming on the show with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
You know, Eric, I was at a Bitcoin meetup yesterday in Austin, and I happened to mention that I was going to be speaking to you today, and the people were ecstatic. And, you know, by way of introduction to the rest of the audience who may not have heard of you, which I'd be shocked, tell us how you got involved with Bitcoin.
Well, back in 2011, I saw a Facebook post about it. And after about 30 minutes of skepticism, I was pretty hooked. And I've been just sort of stuck down the rabbit hole ever since. And crypto has grown from, you know, this little niche project that was entirely based around Bitcoin to an entire new industry that is taking over the world. So that's happened just in, you know, 6 or 7 short years, and it's been really exciting to see that grow. I've been involved in a number of projects, and yeah, the last 3.5 years, it's been Shapeshift.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, the things that you've been able to do, and when you started Shapeshift, I mean, that was really ahead of the curve, and I do want to get into that. But before we do, I do want to touch on Bitcoin a bit here. Here at Crush the Street, I've been describing Bitcoin as resilient. And in an interview I watched you do, you described it as anti-fragile. And I want to get your thoughts on the last hard fork that we saw with Bitcoin going into Bitcoin Cash. And do you think that we'll see a similar response here in November? And having said that, anti-fragile, resilient, do you believe that Bitcoin will continue to be anti-fragile through all of this?
Yeah, so let's define these terms a little bit, because resilient and anti-fragile are different concepts. Resilient just means, you know, able to withstand attacks or problems. And anti-fragile actually means a system that gets stronger when attacks happen. Bitcoin is definitely anti-fragile. It grows and adapts and becomes stronger and more diverse and dynamic with every attack and every problem that's thrown at it. So that is very compelling. The crypto industry as a whole also exhibits the same attribute, and I would say the crypto industry as a whole is even more anti-fragile than Bitcoin. Any particular blockchain or coin could fail. You know, anyone that's involved in Bitcoin has to admit that it's possible that coin could fail. But the industry as a whole and the technology of moving value across these distributed ledgers, that can't really be destroyed. And every problem that comes along the systems adapt. Bitcoin gets stronger, the industry gets stronger. And so, the logical conclusion of that is it will continue to grow and get better and better. And I think then that allows people to predict with some degree of certainty that this is going to take over the world. And we don't know if it'll take 5 more years or 25, but it's happening.
Okay, so I'd like to ask you about atomic swaps here. And actually, I feel like this might lend itself to Shapeshift a little bit in the development of that. And I'll just explain here why. But being able to go in and out of cryptocurrencies, different ones, is a really revolutionary thing. And that's something that you identified in the very early days when everyone wanted Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominated the market. And atomic swaps is identifying that now, and it's in a lot of discussion right now going on with Bitcoin and Litecoin. So with your foresight and understanding, what do you suppose the future looks like for Bitcoin and atomic swaps?
Yeah, so atomic swaps is basically a process or technique by which two people that hold different assets can exchange them with each other without having to trust each other and without having to trust a third party. It is impossible to do in the traditional financial world of fiat currencies and banks. It is very possible to do in crypto. And so there have been a number of exchanges that have been built sort of to push that technology forward, some of which we are working on ourselves. But yeah, I mean, it's very cool. When it becomes more developed, it'll essentially mean that any two people anywhere in the world can trade digital assets without anyone else being involved, and they can do so securely. And that is inevitable and very exciting.
So if you would, please introduce people to Shapeshift if they don't already know what it is and why it's unique. And I think it's very similar. I mean, you had the vision of people going in and out of cryptocurrencies when people really only wanted Bitcoin, but you saw the need for this. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically Shapeshift is an exchange to allow any person in the world to trade one kind of digital asset for another. It is not the same as an atomic swap. It is essentially, we are a company and we offer an exchange rate, and you can send us one asset and we'll send you another directly.
Right.
It works very much like a vending machine. You just kind of walk up and put in one coin and out comes another. And when I got started on this project 3.5 years ago, yeah, Bitcoin was like 98% of the market. And I think some people thought I went a little crazy, working on a project for these altcoins, which they felt like were just a stupid distraction. But what I felt would happen was that this technology was going to start branching out into many different directions, cryptocurrency being just one branch, and all sorts of other interesting applications. And after Ethereum came out, people started creating hundreds of different tokens on top of Ethereum, doing all sorts of different things. And people need and deserve a way to change any of those digital assets into any other with the least friction possible. So just as the protocols themselves allow you to send value instantly and effortlessly, I felt that moving between assets needed that same level of efficacy. So that was the founding vision of Shapeshift. And yeah, it's grown a tremendous amount. This year has been absolutely crazy. Yeah. We've grown about 3,000% from a year ago, and the industry has just been on a tear. So it's been really exciting.
So where are we in terms of the upward swing with cryptocurrencies? A lot of people are saying this is still the beginning, although we're seeing just rapid growth with all of the cryptocurrencies out there. And, I'm speaking to people all the time now who are trying to start cryptocurrency hedge funds and, the big money trying to get into cryptocurrencies. And, once that happens, I mean, we still need to go into the trillions of dollars in terms of total market cap. in my opinion, when we see that. But I mean, just kind of in your thoughts and with what you're doing and what you're seeing, where are we with cryptocurrencies, and how does the future look in terms of growth?
Well, first important point is I think people should try to avoid the term cryptocurrency. It sort of became popular back when Bitcoin was created because Bitcoin was intended to be a cryptocurrency, basically a form of money. But there are so many different blockchain purposes now and different assets on these blockchains. The term currency isn't really appropriate anymore. So I call them digital assets, which is maybe not the most elegant term, but it's become really a whole new asset class. And yeah, you're right. Big money, hedge funds are falling all over themselves to get into this stuff and learn how to use it and hold it and buy it and sell it. Big news yesterday was that Goldman Sachs is considering how to offer Bitcoin to their clients and exploring that. So it's definitely crypto is not yet mainstream by any means, but it is definitely at the top of consciousness for most of the financial world. And that was not the case a year or 2 or 3 ago. So that's been really, really fun to see. And I felt that would be inevitable back in 2011. Is this technology is so cool, it is going to pull in the entire financial world, or stated differently, it is going to allow an entirely new financial world to be built from the bottom up on wholly new infrastructure that completely surpasses banks, that completely surpasses fiat currencies, and allows people to make natively digital financial applications, which the world deserves.
Wow. Well, I think this lends itself to what you're working on right now with Prism, and a way for people to invest in a basket, and I'll call it digital assets. So I guess please explain to people in greater detail, what is the goal with Prism, and how is it applicable to where you see the future for this sector?
Yeah, so Prism is a product of Shapeshift, and sort of a new type of service. It's not very similar to what Shapeshift itself does, but basically it allows someone to get exposure to a basket of assets or a portfolio of digital assets. And it's very simple. You essentially go to the website prism.exchange and you declare what you want your portfolio to be, 20% Litecoin, 10% Dash, 5% Ripple, or however you want to create it, and how much you want it to be worth, whether $100 or $10,000 or $1 million. And then you send in Ether, the Ethereum token, as collateral for that Prism portfolio. So if you create a $10,000 portfolio, you essentially put up $10,000 worth of Ether as collateral, and then you get exposure to the entire basket that you wanted. And then basically the portfolio tracks the value of the constituent pieces, and you can close it, a day later or a month or a year later, and you'll get more or less Ether back based on the performance of the underlying assets. So the reason this was useful and important, most people, if they want that today, if they want to get exposure to these assets, they have 2 options, neither of which are great. One option is that they can download a whole bunch of different wallet software for each coin. They can deal with the synchronizing of the blockchains, the management of several or dozens of private keys, which can be tricky. And then whenever they want to change their portfolio allocation, they have to redo all that infrastructure. So that's possible, but it's a big pain in the ass. And what most people do instead is they simply leave they put money up at an exchange, they buy all the assets they want, and they leave them at that exchange, which is easier. But then you're trusting a third party, and the exchange can be hacked, or the operators of the exchange can be dishonest and run away with people's money. So neither of those situations is ideal. Prism comes along and basically is easier than either of those options, and also safer because you're not having to trust a third party, and you don't have to download any software or deal with the private keys other than the Ethereum that you put in.
Eric, is this at all going against what might potentially be an issue for regulators and managing money and just everything that the banks don't want to see happen in cryptocurrency or digital assets?
Well, perhaps, but in that case, Prism and Shapeshift are just a microcosm of the trend, which is democratization of financial technology. Anyone now in the world can build financial technology and have customers from all over the world as well. Borders do not mean anything now when it comes to finance, and that has never in the history of the world been the case. So yeah, I mean that's a brave new world. There'll probably be a lot of entities that aren't very happy about that.
Well, Eric, that's an interesting thing. I mean, I know you have bucked the trend in the past, and you ran Satoshi Dice. You started this in the early days, and you're not afraid to go where the market is saying that it wants to go here, and it's not always in the best interest of those in charge or the governments or the regulators or the authorities. But the free market tends to do what it wants, and you've been able to be in front of that. So any comments as to where things are going and even how it relates to what you started with Satoshi Dice?
Yeah, well, so for your listeners who aren't familiar with Satoshi Dice, it was a Bitcoin casino that I started in 2012, in April of 2012. And it was just sort of a side project. It basically allowed people to send in Bitcoin to various Bitcoin addresses, and each address had a different set of odds. And if the roll went your way, you'd get back more Bitcoin, and if it didn't, you'd get back just a tiny token amount to let you know you lost the bet. And it totally just took off, and people were playing it from all over the world. And it eventually, in 2012 and 2013, it was more than half of all of the Bitcoin transactions on Earth. And I think what was cool about it basically demonstrated a concept called provable fairness, which meant that even though the odds were in the house's favor, as are all casino games, the odds were published, first of all, and second, could be verified mathematically that they were valid. So if you sent in a bet to a certain address through some cool crypto magic, you could actually, after the fact, know that the bet was fair, that it did what it was supposed to. And this is a technology that no gambling regulator anywhere in the world has required of gaming operators. And you would think that if they actually cared about the safety of those playing these games, they would have hailed this as an amazing invention, and they would have implemented that rule on everyone to basically say, look, if you don't have mathematically provable games, you can't operate your business. I would never advocate that they do that, but the point is that they put themselves forward as protectors of people. So here we are. I am not a regulator. I'm a capitalist. I set up this business as a for-profit enterprise, and it has this technology that allows gamblers to have certainty in the honesty of the game, which no regulator had ever encapsulated. And it was just this beautiful example of how technology and entrepreneurship, I think, will help people a lot more than regulators and laws and men with guns.
Powerful words right there. Well, Eric, you're someone with great intuition about the future. And I guess to close out the call, what are your general thoughts on the future of digital assets?
Well, yeah, as mentioned, I think they're going to take over the world, or I should say they will attract the world to them. Now that value can be commoditized digitally and be scarce, you can do all sorts of really cool things that just couldn't happen before. So this is just one big branch of what the internet started. The internet has changed many different industries And the one industry that hadn't really been affected at all was money and finance, not in any meaningful way. But now that blockchains were discovered, finance itself is going to become revolutionized by digital technology. And it's going to be really exciting to watch that happen. I mean, it's going to mean not only that services that people used pre-crypto are just faster and better, like sending money is now more efficient with Bitcoin than it was ever with a bank wire. But more interestingly, there will be brand new types of commercial interaction that simply couldn't have existed before crypto happened, that there was no analog before crypto happened. And the same pattern occurred with the internet, where it changed some industries. It made, the delivery of information more efficient, but it also allowed new kinds of information. It allowed new kinds of ways of for people to interact with each other, from blogs to Twitter to social media. These kind of things didn't have analogs pre-internet. They were wholly new ways to interact between humans. And crypto and Bitcoin is going to do that in the realm of finance. So a lot is going to change over the next 20 years. And ultimately, the world will have an honest, transparent, open source, democratizing form of money and financial transaction.
All right. Well, there you have it, everyone. Erik Voorhees, the man himself. Erik, thanks for coming on Crush the Street. It was a pleasure speaking with you. If people want to learn more about you, the work you're doing, and what you have to offer, please let them know where they should go.
Yeah, probably Twitter is the best. So my Twitter handle is at Erik Voorhees, ErikVoorhees. And then, my company Shapeshift, you can sign up for the newsletter there at shapeshift.io and stay up to date with what that is doing. And for any of your listeners that haven't just tried using Bitcoin, forget all the buzz around it. Just go try it. Go buy $20 or $50 worth and send it to a friend and see how to create a wallet and how that works. You'll understand what the fuss is about once you've used it.
Wow, good advice right there. All right, Erik, thanks for coming on the show with me.